Okay. Canon has just released two new cameras, one with some high-end specs and features, and the other without. Question is, can the higher featured one compete or even be compared to the Canon R6 and or the Canon 90D? And can the inferior one, the one with less features, be compared and substitute the Canon M50 and maybe kill the M series forever? What's up guys, Dan Forlani here and welcome back to a new video. If you're new to this channel, there's one thing you need to know. I make videos with and about the Canon 90D, the Canon R6, the Canon EOS R and the Canon M50. So today it's about these two new cameras that have been released by Canon. Let's see, what are they? What are they called? The Canon R7 and the Canon R10. What do we know about them? Okay, let's start with the Canon R7. It's been confirmed by 32.5 megapixel sensor and APS-C sensor. Cropped. IBIS, in-body stabilization. Able to shoot like from 15 to 30 frames per second for photography. That is like 15 mechanically and 30 electronically. And that's fast. We already knew that. And 2.36 million dot in the viewfinder, electronic viewfinder, and 1.62 million dot in the LCD screen. The processor is a Digic 10, able to shoot in 4K 60 and in Full HD 1080, 120 frames per second. When shooting 120 frames per second, it will keep the autofocus, the stabilization. The battery. To power this camera, we will need an LPE6NH, just like the Canon R6, like this one. And of course it will be compatible with the previous models of this battery. Also confirmed 2 card slots for SD cards, and now we know also the size of this camera. 132mm times 90.4 times 91.7 millimeters, and its weight 612 grams with the battery and the SD card included. We can choose whether to shoot manual or autofocus from the front of the camera, and that's really interesting. So it looks like so far the specs I talked about in my previous video are confirmed. Okay, so this R7 seems pretty good. It's interesting to see that it shoots in 4K 60p with no crop, but also there is the option to get that 4K 60 with more quality, but cropped. Well, let's say just cropped 4K 60 for the moment, because I don't have any proof that it actually looks better than the regular 4K 60. So, can it be compared to the Canon R6? No. Why? For one very important reason. The Canon R6 is a full frame camera, so totally different. I'm not saying better, I'm not saying worse, because of course if you shoot wildlife, for you it's much better a crop sensor camera, so you have more reach, you can magnify things much more. But when we compare full frame to a crop sensor camera, we're talking about different field of view, different depth of field and stuff. So instead, can we compare this Canon R7 to the Canon 90D? Yes indeed. It's, in my opinion, actually an upgrade. It's a natural upgrade from the Canon 90D, because what we have is, for example, 120 frames per second in Full HD. We do have it on the 90D, but without dual pixel autofocus and without stabilization. With the Canon R7, we have 120 frames per second in Full HD, and according to what I know so far, we don't lose dual pixel autofocus there. So that's a win. However, from what I could see from the video samples from other YouTubers, the quality of the 120 frames per second is meh. Let's say a little soft. Not a big deal. Okay, at least we have it finally with a dual pixel autofocus, just like on the Canon R6. So from the Canon 90D, that's an upgrade. Also, we have IBIS, in-body stabilization, and that's something we do not have on the Canon 90D. We just don't. So that's another upgrade. Now, going back to the frame rates, we have 4K 60, and even with multiple options, cropped, uncropped, We don't have that on the Canon 90D. I've been shooting 4K 60 on my Canon R6 and I just love it. Literally, I fell in love with it. So we have it on the Canon R7. On the Canon 90D we don't have a flat profile, so I downloaded one like Technicolor CineStyle, and it's alright. I mean, we don't get a huge amount of dynamic range, of extra dynamic range, but I make things do. On the Canon R7 we have the awesome C-Log 3, Canon 90D 8-bit, Canon R7 10-bit. Which one is better? If you own a Canon 90D and you shoot videos, is it worth it to upgrade to the Canon R7? Well, that's totally up to you. I believe the Canon R7 is a version of the Canon 90D upgraded and mirrorless. Canon needed to fill in the gap of the RF system because there was no crop sensor camera in the RF system. Now we got two, and apparently this could be a perfect substitute / upgrade from the Canon 90D, including the price. It's really interesting, like $1,400 and a little bit more if you get a lens with it, RFS. If I were you, I would stay away from lenses made for crop sensor cameras, but that's just me. And also because the ones they put out right now are definitely not the best lenses on earth. Oh, another thing, the time limit thing, the recording time limit. I remember everybody was complaining about it, like 30-minute limit. It's gone. Apparently there's no time limit. You can record as long as the battery allows you to. Now let's see something about the new Canon R10. Actually, I'm a little surprised. One second, let's see why. 24.2 megapixel sensor, APS-C also. Crop sensor camera, crop. 2.36 megapixel in the electronic viewfinder, 1.04 million dot in the LCD screen. The sensor, just like for the R7, Digic 10, and to my surprise, also the Canon R10 is able to shoot 4K 60 and 120 frames per second in 1080. Battery is gonna be the one of the Canon RP, just like that one. It's the LP-E17. Its size 122 millimeters times 87.8 times 83.4 millimeters. Its weight 429 grams, including the battery and the SD card. While the sensor of the Canon R7 is the same size of the one of the Canon 90D, 32.5 megapixels. The one of the Canon R10 is smaller, but smaller doesn't mean bad, especially on a crop sensor camera. However, if we compare the R10 to the R7, we clearly notice some differences. No in-body stabilization, no IBIS. The colors in 10-bit, it doesn't have C-Log 3, not even C-Log 1. So why would you have 10-bit colors if you're stuck with default picture styles, where the highlights and the shadows are defined there? You can't modify much in post. I don't get it. Also, it can shoot 4K 30 up until 4K 30. Not that you're gonna have to use 4K 30, you can use 4K 24 and 4K 60. But while we don't get any crop when we shoot in 4K 24 or 4K 30, with the Canon R10 on 4K 60, we get a crop. And it's a 1.56 crop on top of the 1.6 crop for being a crop sensor camera. So I don't know how much this 4K 60 would be usable on the Canon R10 without IBIS. Okay, we can live with that. We can survive without IBIS. 10-bit color without C-Log. 4K 60 super cropped. Well, at least we have the 120 frames per second Full HD in 2022. Okay, let's not complain. Let's see it from a different angle. Is that an improvement, an upgrade from the Canon M50? Yes, indeed. I keep thinking about the C-Log thing. I mean, the fact that We don't have C-Log here or any other flat profile, and for the price, I mean, it's a good camera, better than the Canon M50, but almost $1,000. My advice, even if you're a beginner, I would save some more and get the R7 or a second-hand 90D if I don't have anything and I want to start. And by the way, the Canon 90D is still an awesome camera. In brief, Canon R7, Canon R10. Am I impressed? Not really. The Canon R7 doesn't give me any good reason to buy it. I'm fine with my Canon R6, it's full frame. It has C-Log 3, in-body stabilization, 120 frames per second in Full HD. I don't need the R7. Could I use it as a big camera, as a second camera to substitute my Canon 90D? Yeah, I could, but I'm not going to. I'm really happy with my Canon 90D. It's true, the Canon R7 is like a natural upgrade. Honestly, I'm not really impressed with the R7, because all you can do with the Canon R7, I can do it with the R6 better. And for the things that I do with my Canon 90D, I'm fine with the 90D. For what concerns the Canon R10, yes, it's a great substitute / upgrade for the Canon M50. But again, why should I spend $1,000 and then be stuck with default picture styles and having to download some surrogate like Technicolor CineStyle, which is good, but definitely not like C-Log. So these new cameras, am I impressed? No. Alright, that's it for today. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash the like button and subscribe if you ain't already, and I'll see you guys very soon in the next video.